give me like a cheat code, just a little every so often, throw something in there, and see me struggling. Like if I'm struggling trying to figure something out while discussing, give me a heads up, like, hey, bring it, give me a cheat code.
Okay.
Yes.
That's really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Hey guys, welcome. Oh.
That's what we call a false start, guys. I do apologize once more again. My mic was plugged in, but it wasn't on. I don't know. It's one of those days. Listen, hey guys, welcome to Little Blackbird 91. Look, sometimes communication, you think you're making sense, you think you're talking, you think you're making a sound, and the other person can't hear you. So we're going to talk to you guys about Ikechi and Emem really, really quickly, and break down their situation because I think listening to Emem and Ikechi on this episode, I saw more of the issues that Emem was bringing to the table, but I also saw more of the issues that Ikechi was bringing to the table and not even realizing and being self-aware that he actually is the problem. And so you hear Ikechi a lot of times thinking that he's answering a question. And I think I watched the after show and it was a really good breakdown by Keisha, where she was asking him questions, and I could tell that she was really pissed off anyway. I should say, maybe not pissed off, but she was intent on getting an answer. She asked him some specific questions, and he didn't really answer them, and so she called him out. And I said, oh, that's exactly what you end up doing a lot of times when you're dealing with Emem. And so I saw that part of him. And I said, okay, that's something that he needs to work on. That's something that he needs to be better at as well, because you can't stay in that place where you don't answer questions, but feel like you've answered them and not have any self-awareness that you haven't actually answered the question. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there should be some self-awareness to know that, okay, I haven't answered the question. I haven't actually, made sure that I've giving you a sufficient answer that will help you understand me more. Like, he wants understanding without actually giving any level of knowledge to be understood. And I think the assumptions by him are annoying. I can't lie to you. Okay, all right. I can't lie to you. But I want to say this. Okay, I want to say this. This particular aspect I saw with Emem was delusional. And I won't say the word aggressive. I don't like the word aggressive. Delusional, and she's very forward. And she has spice in her. Let's use that word because we use it for white folks. So let's use that word. She has spice in her. Okay? She has spice in her. Because when she was talking to Dr. Pia was asking her questions about the situation between herself and Ikechi. And she basically said, obviously, you keep calling him your husband, but he's mistreated you, yada, yada, yada. And then old girl was like, but that's my husband. And I was like, sis, Dr. Pia is not trying to trip you up. She's merely asking the question, why do you keep asking that question? Right? Why do you keep asking that question? And so her eagerness is annoying. And that's the truth. Her eagerness is being read as being annoying. And so I think it's very difficult. I do see now his perspective a bit more, right? Whilst I do believe that he's a problem and he can do so much great work in terms of the stuff that he's actually done. And like, for instance, calling his wife an arsehole, which I felt was absolutely ridiculous, that you can call your wife an arsehole and we don't address it appropriately. I think that's mad, okay? I think that's absolutely crazy. You know what I'm saying to you? But hey, So yeah, no. So there's a lot of things that were going on. So we're gonna break it down in this episode for you, give you a bit more insight so you can actually see it as well, and hopefully you'll be able to understand the viewpoint we're coming with. So I don't think she's necessarily aggressive, but she definitely is forward. I love the word someone said, blunt, and that's an issue. But Ikechi, I still gotta say, still gonna say that Ikechi needs help in a space of being able to really communicate how he feels. And so we're going to break that down for you as well in the next few moments. Before we do, make sure you massively do me a favor. If you're here, you're liking, you're sharing, and you are subscribing. This is not the super panel. We'll have the super panel later on tonight. We will be on later on tonight. I'm sorry I wasn't able to do it yesterday. I want to be crude, but you know, the bubble guts got me. Okay, all right. In Ghana, one wrong food, bubble guts gonna get you. Okay, and I didn't really want to be on the live thinking about my guts whilst I'm trying to, you know, tell you guys about Man at First Sight. Okay, but we'll definitely chop it up later on tonight with a full super panel as well. But all right, listen. Before we do, let's like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button again. Drop a little intro, and then we're gonna talk about Emem and Ikechi as well. Little black book. You know what time it is. 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 Yeah. Listen, I see you, Eastern as well. I'm gonna bring you on in a few minutes. So let me just quickly run through a few things quickly and I see Sean's obviously popped up as well. So fantastic. So the Mandem are here as well. Fantastic. I love to see you guys here. You know what I'm saying to you. Would have been last night, but again, like I said, my bubble guts were getting me. All right, cool. So just quickly, one of the things I noticed obviously with Ikechi and Emem is that Ikechi believes that even though he hasn't communicated, he does feel like the other person should just know. Okay, and assumptions always kill, right? In relationships, you must be able to communicate effectively with your partner to let them hear the message so they know, right? He was pressed by Pastor Cal, and Pastor Cal was letting him know that, you know, there's some things. Have you communicated some things to her about the way that you feel? And he hadn't. And I'm like, bro, what do you think was going to happen? You need to be able to communicate these things in order to be able to, for her to be able to understand your position. When they were talking with the experts together, he hadn't expressed certain feelings and thoughts about certain things. And I was like, well, bro, you calling her an arsehole for asking you questions, while I do believe that she may ask questions in a very forward manner, maybe she's a little bit too direct with it, right? I do believe those things, right? Calling her an arsehole, yeah, bro, that ain't it. Okay, that ain't it. Now, what I would say is, I do understand how he felt about when they would go out, and maybe he felt like he saw that she treated quote unquote low value people differently than the high value people. How true that is, I don't know in that respect, because again, once more I would say this, that judging by the way that he reacted to her house, we gonna have a tough time believing that this is a story that is what you're saying. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, it's not to say that isn't true, it's just say that it's going to be tougher to really believe your story because this fits your narrative, right? You went to her house and the house wasn't pretentious. It wasn't like some house where, you know, she was so materialistic. It was just a really big house that had multiple TVs. And I don't know about you, in my house, my family home, we had TVs in every room. So you know what I'm saying? Like, that was never a big thing. So but if going by the story that he said, going by the story that he actually said, you know, in that space, it was, I could understand if he felt like because she's treating low value people a certain way, that he will be treating a certain way. My thing is, in that space, is why do you believe you're low value? Because why are you interpreting their low value people and you being low value? You know what I'm saying to you? That's my thing. And that's a personal feeling that maybe you're projecting. I'm not saying 100% that's the truth. He could be projecting as well in that space, because, you know, for him, and again, to get that answer we got about the low value, that was actually later on the after party. And on the after party, he had to be pressed by Keisha to get that answer. Like, she had to press him to get that answer from him. And to be able to get what was actually an issue for him. And I said, why was it taking so much effort to get that from him? Like, why is it taking so much effort and push to get that answer from you? And I said, if that was someone else pushing, he would say to them they're being aggressive. I'm surprised he didn't call Keisha out for being aggressive. I'm surprised. Because Keisha was moving heavy with the questions. You know? So I was surprised that there was no, you know, pushback from him to say that, you know, that she was being aggressive towards him in asking all these kind of questions to get a better understanding of who he is. But I think he knew better. I think he knew better not to do that on the after party as well. And then obviously as well, there was also I would say that there was things that he never apologized properly for calling her an arsehole, and I felt like this was something that showed me a very big contemptuous attitude. I want to be very fair and very honest. You calling out your partner an arsehole is crazy work, okay? And when the opportunity arises to explain yourself, I think you just need to be able to, you know, surrender your point and be honest about how you feel about her, and then say, hey, look, you know what, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said those words. I think for me personally, in that space, it's to call your partner an arsehole is to go a step too far. I would never want to call my partner an arsehole. And you know, I think you have to immediately apologize. It's a slip of the tongue, yes, but the fact that he didn't apologize, yeah, that told me there's a lot of contempt, but it isn't for her. You see, listen, I've been treated bad in a relationship before, but I would never call her an arsehole. You know what I'm saying to you? I would never call her an arsehole. Now, when you call someone an arsehole and you label them that as well, in that perspective, and of course Pastor Cal corrected him and let him know that this was, I mean, kind of corrected him, right? And you don't apologize, it tells me that your issue isn't even just your partner. You got an issue probably with a certain type of woman, not all, a certain type of woman. And it's making you, and it's because you feel some type of way in that woman's presence, or it could be even a man as well. But when you start feeling a particular type of way, that's why you're calling them an arsehole. Right? When we saw the exchange, we didn't see anything that promoted for him to call her an arsehole. And there was no level of intensity of question. She could have questioned him all she wanted, but to call him an arsehole? And he didn't apologize? You know, so that for me showed me again, Ikechi not measuring his tongue. He's called her an arsehole. He's called her aggressive. He's pretty much labeled her a predator. Like, what has he not called her at this moment, and not really backed down the way he needs to, or not corrected himself? You know? So for me personally, I'm like, he's a problem, because he's completely labeled her as this person who's this awful godforsaken person. And I'm like, bro, the only person who's looking like that is you. And it's very passive aggressive. If you notice, Pastor Carl had to call him out. He tried to drop the whole, yes, Pastor Carl, and he said, stop that, because that's not what you're trying to say. You know what I mean? So again, once more, he got called out for being passive aggressive again. Okay, got called out for being passive aggressive. So for me personally, I said, sir, you're gonna have to work on that. And my last point for Ikechi, really quickly, is that when you feel belittled, which I understand, by the way, you know, feeling belittled, but there's a part which also I do believe that part of it is projecting here. When I say projecting, meaning I think he feels like he's being belittled by having a woman who is, I don't even want to say successful. I just want to say that a woman of her stature, and I don't get it twisted. I do believe that she asks questions a particular way, right? But that's where you have to let the person know. Listen, the way you're asking questions makes it sound like you're trying to belittle me. But he hasn't had that conversation. He made a judgment and then made an action from it. It's why I tell you guys that you have to inquire before you make a judgment, because when you judge before you make an inquiry, your action, the action comes from that place, usually is one that will be not in alignment with bringing a repair to the relationship, but rather a tear to the relationship. He went for the tear, right? So my thing is, like, he said that he's not, and another thing is this, he said he's never been disrespectful to her. So what you calling her an arsehole? You saying that basically, blood, she was trying to, be a predator towards you, you know, saying that she's aggressive. Yeah, that's not you. You don't think you was disrespecting her at all? You right? And I said, oh, sir. But then he had to be called out and said, well, when you called her an arsehole, what do you think was happening? He said, oh, yeah. I said, oh, no, sir, you are a problem. You think you are good and you're not good. This is the biggest issue I have with him. You think you're good, but you're not good. Okay? But again, that's my quick points on him. And one point I'll just make on Emem is, my only thing is, I think that she's a bit too eager to try and make this work with Ikechi, and he doesn't like her, and it's causing more issues. The more that she likes him, the more that her actions are being read as being way too eager and a bit too much. She just needs to back off. And Dr. Pia was right. Back the frick up. Let him have some space. If it is meant to work, he'll come to you. If not, get the frick out of there, darling. Don't waste your time pursuing him. And I think Emem is liable to pursue because of her anxious state. As well. So yeah, we'll talk about that as well, because I felt like she had a bit of spice for Dr. Pia, and when she was called out about it, she said no, and I said, no, you were being spicy. So I said, where's your self-awareness too, Emem? You don't know that you got a little spice in you, sis? You've been hiding that because maybe, again, as a black woman on the show, you don't want to showcase some of those particular traits. But when I saw that, I said, oh sis, that isn't because of. And that's what I told you last week about it. I said, when she called him a clown in a suit, I said, I'm going to hold it, but I won't say anything just yet because I understand she was under pressure at that moment. But I said she didn't need to say that. She could have simply said, I hate the fact he's saying these things. I don't like it. But she went after his suit, and I said, okay, sis, you got a little spice in you that you probably haven't been showing all the while. And whilst I do believe you're under pressure, and while he's been saying some nasty stuff to you and been paying, yeah, sis, I think there's some stuff that you might be doing behind the scenes that we're not fully aware of. Okay, all right. So when Dr. Pia was trying to call you out about the husband thing, she did give a little bit of spice. It was a little ginger. It was a little, and the ginger was not necessary because the woman was telling you that that's not your husband. That man don't like you like that. You know what I'm saying to you? But she was willing to defend the point about him being a husband. That told me there's a lot of delulu there. Rather than her saying, listen, I hear it, but, you know what I mean? I said, no. You know what I'm saying to you? I said, no. You know what I'm saying to you? So again, that's not saying she's the worst. It does not mean that she is, equal to Ikechi, not even close. We're not trying to par them at all. We're simply talking about the behavior that I saw from Emem in this space. And, I think we talked about this last time about when we always see an obvious villain, we tend to not try to dialogue about the other person. But we've been saying about Emem's delusion for a little while, but she has a little bit of sharpness behind her. She knows how to. You know what I mean? She has to. And that delulu becomes a problem too, because it's like you're claiming someone that doesn't want to be claimed. You know what I'm saying to you? Like you claiming someone who doesn't want to be claimed. You know? And that's a big problem for her, because it's going to cause you to be at odds with that very person. They don't want you. You know? In that space. Someone said, I don't like when people are critical of someone's reaction after they endured all types of disrespect. I don't think that's Emem's reaction to the disrespect. That is Emem. Emem has a little bit of sharpness to her. It's okay. Like it's not a case of like, oh, it's a reaction. She has a little bit of sharpness to her. We always knew it was gonna be there. You know what I'm saying? We always knew it was gonna be there. Like I said, when she said the clown thing, I said, yeah. You know? So again, doesn't mean that she's a bully or anything like that. I don't think she's necessarily aggressive. I don't think any of those things. She's just a little bit sharp. But anyway, let me get the boys on, and let's get this conversation flowing, because I know already I'm probably going to get some people against me when I start talking about Emem a little bit. But I think it's important to give a bit of two sides. Like we do with the men, I think it's important to give the other side as well, you know. Someone said clown was an adjective. I hear it. I hear it. Man, them, what's really, really, really good?
What's up?
What's up? Whew. Ikechi and Emem, man, it's crazy. What are you telling me, man?
Wait. Before let's talk about Sean. I like this hoodie that you have on. This is a nice hoodie.
Oh, thanks, bro. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's right, Sean. Give it to them. you go,
Where to
you keep your
start?
head
I was gonna say, where are we gonna start? I think the big thing for me was seeing that Ikechi is an incredibly wounded man, in the sense that whatever has happened in his past and this might be a reason why it's kind of reliving or rehashing in real time with the experiment. But we're seeing it where if somebody has maybe some leverage or makes him feel small, he gets into this corner where he feels like he has to lash out, and he's kind of like a wounded animal in a way. And I think that it's one of those things where it rehashes. I think it rehashes whenever they have their discussions about what was it? When he came into the dinner and he felt like they were all, he just was already defensive. I think that it shows up in the show oftentimes. And so he comes across as a very wounded man. And that has no excuse as to why you're calling your wife a hole, or you're calling her aggressive. Like Kojo said, I did see a little bit of the spice that is related to Emem, which could, spark a little bit of that activity within Ikechi. Regardless, no excuses for him. He deserves all the verbal, I guess, issues that he's coming with now. But yeah, and also maybe some of the negative remarks on his book. I mean, I'm not really big on people going after people's jobs, but I saw the reviews on that book, and after the 9th, it wasn't looking good. There was a lot of 1 stars on that book. So I feel like people are feel pretty strongly about Ikechi.
Talk to me, Sean. What are you telling me? I see your comment. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I'm peeved with the experts. I've been on them. I don't know why my camera is blurry. Oh, okay. Here we go. Yeah, I've been on them for the last few episodes. Yeah, I hear your point about a little sharpness. I definitely think Emem is direct, but the spicy, they could have held that. I get what you're saying. She's probably eager, a little bit more eager to be with Ike than she should be, based on how he's been responding. But the spicy, I need Dr. P to lay off the spicy comments. She said something to Carla. She mentioned that to Carla, and now here we are with Emem. I just think you got to leave room for people to communicate the way they need to communicate, especially in the midst of a tense situation. When you're seeing somebody that's supposed to be a professional, and for somebody that's been to couples counseling, my therapist gave me the room to communicate, and sometimes I was angry. It wasn't at them, it was the moment. You asked me a question and it's touching on something that's tense. I'm going to respond in a way that's a little snappy, but it's not personal to you. It is because you're asking me a question about a relationship that is contentious. So I'm going to, they didn't take it personal. They didn't like, oh, Sean, you're being snappy with me, or you're being rude to me. It's not like she cursed her out, or she's, called her out of her name, or was, overtly mean to her. I just feel like, in that space, you should be safe to communicate. You should be safe to be able to talk vulnerably. And sometimes that's going to come with an attitude or an edge, because we're not talking about sunshine and rainbows. We're talking about a situation that is contentious. So yeah, I wasn't too thrilled about that. I don't think the experts dug in enough. You mentioned it earlier. I really hate that we didn't get to see, even if they did it, we didn't get to see how Ike was fully addressed after calling her an a-hole. I hated that. I did. On the flip side, I wish she would have backed up all the way off of him. I really wish that would have been more of an outcome. That would have been my preference for sure, is for them not to encourage her, and for her also to be like, you know what, I've seen enough. I don't feel like, I feel comfortable and safe to be in a space with somebody who has called me out my name, who's made some pretty strong accusations. Maybe I just need to, you know, sit this one out.
Definitely hear that. Philo, talk to me, bro.
Good afternoon, gents and ladies in the chat. The experts were super whack. Awfully whack. I felt Dr. Pia calling Emem spicy was a synonym for aggressive. I felt Ikechi. The one thing I'm agree with Sean with, well, I'm agree with Sean with a lot of things. Emem needs to let Ikechi answer first and then she responds. She's always answering the questions first. She needs to take a step back and wait for him to make the move instead of her making the move. But she shouldn't have been encouraged for them to, you know, reunite anyway. They're asking her all of these questions. The one question they're not asking him is, do you like this woman? It was awful advice. I'm disappointed. The whole episode was just whack. Like, everybody was whack except for Thomas. It was just awful. Ikechi does not like this woman, and he shouldn't be encouraged to remain in this relationship to be destructive to this woman.
I hear that, Phil. Definitely hear that. So I definitely hear that. I love this because we're gonna open up some really good dialogue today, and I think we're gonna have a really good conversation because I think there are gonna be different sides to the situation. I'm gonna push back on the Emem situation, right? Because did not Dr. Pia call out also Ikechi for his spicy behavior when he was acting a little bit spicy himself? Dr. Pia has been consistent. She called out also him for his behavior and his passive aggressiveness that he also did as well. And my second point on that also is, and it could be and I'm going to accept both sides. It could be that synonym, or it could even be a microaggression to call her the spicy word to almost kind of like be the undercover current for actually rather than saying aggressive. It could be, you know. I also give the flip side. We have many times a conversation, not on this platform, but on the internet a lot of times, where we say, we can call Latinos spicy, but we can't call black women spicy. We don't call them, we call them aggressive. And then we call a woman spicy, and now we're fighting back at the spicy. So, and again, I'm giving both sides here. You know, I'm saying that there's room for both of these opinions, and say I can hear what you guys are saying in terms of maybe it's the undercurrent and kind of almost the undercutting to kind of promote that idea that she actually is aggressive. And I would say there's another side to it, which is also that I think it's good that we're calling her spicy rather than calling her aggressive, because we talk about Latino women or even, you know, mixed race women, you know, of a different hue or whatever, and because they're not black, we will call them, oh, it's spicy, she's, you know, a little bit naughty the way she talks back, whatever, right? And we go, great, you know. So in that particular space. So I do hear what you guys are saying as well. I personally think though that with that Dr. Pia situation, the reason why I felt like it was a little bit, let's say spice, let's say another word, it was sharp. That's why I use the word sharp. It was sharp for me because the issue was about you talking about calling him a husband when he's mistreating you so badly that he's left you. And all she was highlighting was that you keep calling him your husband. Why is that? And she got really defensive in that moment. And so in that moment, she became very sharp. And it was a little bit, y'all be talking about men being sassy. That was a sassy moment. The way she answered it, it was like very curt. And so that was, that's why she was highlighting that. She's like, oh, that was a little bit, you know what I mean? But it was just a moment. Like I said, again, it was just a moment that she had. And I said, obviously, that I understand that as well. But I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts? And by the way, someone's asked about Michelle. I've already said about Michelle. I think she's disrespectful. But go on, Sean.
Yeah, I would go along with that of the call out for the behavior if she was tying it to an end result. Like if she's like, you really shouldn't be so eager to call him your husband and be so defensive about it, but then her advice winds up being to go back into the scenario. You know what I mean? Like, I would get it almost if she's like, hey, you're kind of giving me a lot of pushback on, you know, me trying to question you on why you're calling him your husband. But then your advice is to encourage her to go back into the situation, is to go back into the situation and bend herself into a pretzel to be with somebody that really doesn't want to be with her. So it's kind of like, which one is it? So that's why I kind of was like, I might have been with Dr. Pia if she would have just, you know, and I get it. Experts can't tell you not to go back in because that's part of their, you know, they're for the show first. But I would say if she just wouldn't have, you know, given her tools to now go back and enter into a relationship with her husband, then I would be like, you know, okay. Or if she would have just said, hey, you just might want to reconsider, think about yourself. If she would have directed her into more self-care, self-healing, thinking more about how, you know, she wants to be treated in a marriage, I could have been with her. But if your advice is to only turn around and go back and, you know, be with him, then why are you calling her out for wanting him to be your husband? You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't get it. And to me, it was incongruent with the messaging that she was giving in the beginning.
I love that. That's fair points. Easton, what are you saying?
I'm a little bit on the same wavelength as Sean. I just think that, again, we're kind of armchair quarterbacking this thing because we get to see an edited version. Like, this conversation could have been drawn out. And so I do want to give a small percentage of like, maybe they were being a little bit more thoughtful with the words that they chose. I do think Dr. Pia was trying to figure out I mean, maybe she felt a little bit more comfortable talking to Emem as a woman. I think that saying somebody spicy or aggressive is different from a man and a woman's relationship compared to a woman to woman. And she's like, yeah, girl, you probably are being a little spicy and this, that, and third. I just think that maybe I'll give a little bit of grace to Dr. P on that. There is that level of eagerness that Emem does have that I think I won't say it comes across as like thirsty, because that's again a negative connotation, but I do think that if Ikechi is his posture, he's never really open. Like, I was looking in the chat and somebody said his posture. Yeah, his posture was never really open. Like, everything was very closed off, very distant. And for him, I think because of that, because he's closed off, everything that she does is an attack. She could say, I love you. And for him, that's like, oh, whoa, what you mean by you love me? I think that everything comes across as an attack. The aggressiveness in the bed, he's already closed off. So she makes a move on him. Oh, you were trying to do X, Y, and Z. And you were trying to, it could go off in totally different areas. And so I think that because of his prior wounds to being in, or prior wounds to becoming a part of MAFS, I didn't realize that I guess he was applying for season 13 whenever it was in Houston, and he applied again. So it's been a couple of years since I don't know if it's true or not, but they said he applied for Houston, and then he also applied for this one. So that's a couple of seasons apart. And so even within that time frame of the first time he applied to this time, there hasn't been any success in terms of his dating profile. So I'm saying, I think that a lot of the lion's share of the responsibility is on Ikechi. Emem, I do realize that from a lot of people's vantage point, is the innocent bystander here. I give her a little bit of areas where she could work on, but Ikechi needs to heal whatever wounds he has, whether it be with his mother, his father, his past relationships, because somebody like Emem immediately started to make him feel inferior, and he started to attack based off of that and be off the back foot in a way. So, yeah.
Phil, what are you saying? He might be busy. He'll jump in when he's ready. Go for it, Phil.
I was talking and I was on mute. I was saying I definitely agree with your points with the spicy comment and things like that. I agree with Sean and I agree with Easton. My only thing with Dr. P is with Emem, I think she was speaking out of frustration. It wasn't being sharp. She's frustrated with this whole process and what she's been going through with Ikechi And I think because Dr. Pia and the experts are aware of him already calling her aggressive, the spicy thing was a diss. And in addition, I'm with Sean. Y'all are telling her to get back with this man. So y'all encourage this kind of behavior, because as soon as Emem would have classified Ikechi as something else, they would have brought it back to her, brought it back to him being her husband. That was my problem with the whole situation. Y'all encourage, oh, this is your wife. You should behave like a husband. You should behave like a wife. This is what the experts are encouraging. And so when she's displaying this, even in this inappropriate situation, that's when you should bring it back to her and try to, like Sean said, empower her to make, better decisions and think about herself more. Not encourage her to stay in a destructive relationship for the sake of ratings.
No, I definitely hear that. I guess I'm gonna be the person who's gonna spin a it's gonna be the bad guy in this situation. But I think we can do both, right? I think whenever we're talking about this situation, for instance, I'm not saying she's spicy, therefore that is why Ike did what he did. No, it's actually completely separate. For me, when I talk about when I'm talking about people's behaviors, I'm saying, let's say she leaves this relationship, she'll go into the next one, and she'll still be spicy. It's not going to change. Like it's a part of you, right? So it's something that can be worked on. Same with Ike, right? It's not the fact that our good sis Emem is asking him questions that he's a problem. We've seen it. The cousin asking questions. Keisha asking questions. Like at the table asking questions. He is quite curt and quite sharp and himself quite spicy in responding to people, right? And we've seen that consistently. So that will always be the problem he will have. If he doesn't sort that out now, he will have that issue in a relationship as well later on. It's not about the person in front of him. It's something that he actually ends up doing. So that's why I was saying that maybe in that space, for me, I think my thing is that I feel like Emem is a little bit delusional. No offense. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think she's a little bit delusional because from what we can see, and again, it might be edited, so we have to be very clear. It's a bit like when I say with the Allen situation and MADDISON. It's edited, so we can only go by what we're seeing on the actual screen. By the responses that I'm hearing from her on the screen at the time, bar and after show, it's given delusional. In a sense of this man is giving you nothing to work on, yet we seem to be excited about going back in, saying this man is my husband. I'm saying to you, like, we're claiming things that necessarily, I'm like, babe, you're a little bit too enthusiastic about somebody who's not enthusiastic about you. You ever had somebody, and I'm just being fair, you ever had somebody who you don't like and they're enthusiastic about you? You just want to tell them to jog on. You know what I mean? Like, jog on. And it's annoying. And at that point, that's what I'm saying to you, that at that point, it is annoying. And actually it's irritating. Right, so as much as Ikechi is a big ass problem, one thing I have not heard Ikechi do so far is draw her back in. Can we be honest about that? Have we heard Ikechi be like, I want Emem, Emem come back, I want Emem in my life, I need an Emem. From what we have seen, Emem does not like her, and again, we'll hold him accountable after this as well. Emem has shown us that he don't like her at all. You know what I'm saying, Chu? At all. At all. You know what I mean? So for my thing is like, so what is Emem running on? And again, of course, she's probably committed to the show. She's committed also to the role of being a wife, and she's trying to see out certain things. So I want to be fair to her in that space. But it's just probably the way that it is. It's giving for me personally, maybe you guys can disagree, a little delusional. Do you guys agree? Maybe disagree. Is it giving delusional? Maybe not. Yes, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think she is romanticizing this situation and putting, as Phil would say, too much dip on her chip in terms of the marriage. I think that he's just not giving her that energy where she could my man him, right? He's not. He's given much less than that. And I think she's hopeful. And again, that's why I think she's romanticizing and over-romanticizing the situation, because as she said, you see it in the confessionals and the tapes, she came into this process really hoping and wanting to have a husband. Right. She came into the process, knowing that her dad had passed, and that was the one thing he hadn't seen her accomplish. And she wanted to do that. So I think in her efforts to do it, she's definitely overly eager when it comes to Ike. And then she took the little bit of cues that he gave her and, you know, went in too deep. She jumped into the deep end.
Definitely hear that. Jeff, welcome to the conversation. We're talking obviously about Emem and Ikechi, kind of dissecting Emem first before we go into Ikechi next. I'm sure you've heard bits of the conversation. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts that this relationship is a recipe for disaster that they should never have entertained. It's like the therapist, they basically said that Emem, you know, she's more into the science. So I'm thinking to myself that she looks at things from a formulaic point of view, whereas Ikechi, he is an artist. So I said in the comments, he is abstract, and it shows in the way that he communicates. So he's very good when it comes to his words, so it's left to interpretation. But that also means he's not great when it comes to communicating properly. And then when he's now put in a position where he has to actually say how he feels, he has no emotional regulation. That's why he was able to just say, hey, like Emem's an asshole, even though he can't work out that he also has behaved like an asshole. Because when the pastor asked him, is there anything that you've ever done that was disrespectful? His first answer was, oh, I've not done anything that's disrespectful. And then afterwards, the pastor said, I heard you called her an arsehole. And he's like, well, if you do things that are an arsehole, you expect it. So already there's a level of, well, we're still talking with Emem, but they are the same person, but in a different way, in a different frame. Both of them are delusional, but for two different reasons. I say that Emem is the fixer in the relationship. She's trying to maintain the relationship with Ikechi, even though there are clear signs that Ikechi don't want her. Ikechi does not want her at all, because when the therapist asked her, why is it you're with someone who does this to you? And then she gave this diagnosis of him having a defense mechanism, meaning that she's already probably in the mindset of wanting to fix said defense mechanism, because she will feel that if I fix him, I will become more valuable. I will have some level of value of that, like that build-a-boo dynamic. And because of that, it's creating this power play between both Ikechi, who clearly does not want her, and Emem, who for some strange reason feels the need to take up the responsibility of wanting to still be in the relationship. So much so that when it came time to ask about, you know, getting back together, it was Ikechi. So it was Emem that basically asked the question, do you want to get back with me? Ikechi, he looked so reluctant to even say it. They only just said it for the sake of saying it. It's not going to work. So I think Emem has to take accountability for the fact that you're choosing to be with someone that clearly don't want to be with you. It's like it's almost similar to how I think of AD and Clay, you know, where AD is trying to fix Clay, it's not gonna work. Or Toby the Wingway and Fat, where Toby is not attracted to her, but Fat is. It's like one person is desperate to want to fix a relationship with someone that doesn't have that same keen interest in you. So that's what I thought about it when I saw that.
Spicy. I love it. I'm being facetious. But I like the breakdown. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Appreciate that as well. Anybody else want to chime in on this particular issue? Because obviously I know that talking to Dr. PR and obviously herself and Dr. Cal. Any other thoughts on Emem before we switch it to Ike? Yes, Phil. You're muted again, bro.
Sorry, I just want to say shout out to Sean for another synonym for delusional is romanticizing. Yes, she's definitely romanticizing this relationship more than she should be. I think that was the perfect word for it, Sean. I'm going to get out of trying to calling people delusional and say romanticizing, because she's definitely romanticizing. And then it goes back to that, like, what has he really shown her that he even likes her is what I'm questioning. Like, what is she seeing that we're not seeing? Because she can't be that caught up in whatever this wanting to be a wife thing she has going on. But it's definitely a lot of romanticizing.
Phil, I would want to push back a little. I agree with you, the romanticizing. I'll push back a little bit that there's nothing. Remember, Ikechi is an artist. I believe he does spoken word from last heard. So he has the gift of the gab. He probably has the ability to charm, to say things that will tickle her fancy. So, but it's a double-edged sword depending on how you use your skill set. So the same words that Ikechi can use to make her day are the same words that he can probably use to also break her day. You know, manipulate the situation to his advantage, if that be the case. I mean, he felt too comfortable, saying that she's an arsehole, even though he didn't give context behind her behavior. So that's what I'll say towards that, because there's a saying that women, they fall in love with what they hear. They fall in love with their ears, and men fall in love with what they see in terms of their eyes.
I want to say one last thing. Oh, Phil, you can respond. Go ahead, Phil.
I just wanted to say, but she said he's not even speaking to her. So how much is he saying to her? He comes home, he goes to bed, he's not engaging. So what is he actually talking to her about? Because they're working. He's coming home, he's going straight to bed, he's waking up, going to the gym. So like, what is he really saying to her? And to your earlier point is he does have the gift of, well, he thinks he has the gift of gab with, you know, doing the word salad. But like I said before, people ask questions for clarity, and that's not what he's being. He's not being clear. He's just throwing a lot of words at her, and he throws a lot of words at people. And when they ask him the follow-up questions, he becomes frustrated with their response, and then he turns into the passive aggressiveness to, like, you know, throw them off because he really doesn't have an answer or response.
And also to piggyback off of that, I think that it's also a man kind of, well, maybe a point that we never really thought about was, I think, you know, with Emem being, you know, a little bit ready to get married, have kids, I think that there's, you know, the timeline, the clock that also pushes that kind of romanticizing that we are all speaking about. But I don't want to say she's a little bit more delusional. I just think that maybe she's one of those type of people who have done all the accomplishments, has bought the house, has made everybody happy, but internally hasn't made herself happy without having somebody to share it all with. And so now this is a last like Hail Mary to make that dream come true. She lost her father. And so that's one thing that he wasn't able to see her participate in or accomplish. And so now she's willing to do hell or high water, make this thing work with Ikechi. And so I do have a little bit of sympathy there, but I also see this as something that I see oftentimes, whether it be with my relatives or even just people out in the field, where they may have accomplished so many different things that internally they're not happy with their circumstances, or they're not at peace with it. So they're willing to go above and beyond for somebody who will breadcrumb them in terms of the responses and stuff like that. I don't think Ikechi's done anything. I think that she's maybe built Ikechi up, or built a husband up in her head, and Ikechi on paper is her husband. And so she's like, okay, well, he's my build a husband. I'm going to do all this stuff because in my head, I've built him out to be this incredible person, or just this guy that is able to fill in this role that I really, really want. And so maybe that might be some of the reasons why she's so willing to go back and compromise her own, I guess, I won't say morals and ethics, but definitely her self-esteem and confidence for Ikechi.
Ain't heard from you yet, Sean. What are you saying? Any other thoughts?
No, I pretty much, you know, made it clear, you know, what my opinion is on this one. You know, I do think that I hope she's collecting evidence to kind of make a decision that she's, you know, probably not going to get much more from Ike than what she's gotten up to this point. So I do hope that she isn't, you know, kind of going into this with too much of rose-colored glasses that he's going to give her something different.
Yeah, definitely hear that as well. Definitely hear that. Obviously, we're going to discuss obviously Ike now as well. But before we do, question obviously that comes up then is, you know, obviously Dr. Pia had a hand in, you know, getting them back together. I guess she said, obviously, if you guys can get together, you now need to start living together again. You know, and push them back into that space as well. My thing is, how much account are we going to hold on to Dr. Pia and the experts, but more Dr. Pia, because she really was, she's the one that had to speak up, I guess, to say it. How much are we going to hold her accountable for pushing these two back together again? Is it all on Dr. Pia and the experts, or is this something that we have to let Emem and Ikechi kind of take their accountability for in this space? Question to you guys. I'm going to silent me now.
Yeah, no, listen, I've said it from the beginning. You know, I wish Dr. Pia would have taken her spicy advice, you know, and not given that advice for them to move in. I think they should have let them slow walk this. If, you know, again, we do understand they can't tell them to break up. We get it. But I wish they would have allowed them to slow walk the process and not put them back together in a living environment together. So, yeah, I wasn't crazy about that advice. I don't think there was enough done to address the rude comments that I made. I don't think they left them, or at least allowed us to see, with better tools for communication, how to communicate, how to problem resolve. I saw none of that. And I would hope that after you see somebody call their spouse such a horrible name, that you would let the audience see it addressed, and then some go forward tools like, hey, you know, if you get stuck in a space where you feel like you're backed in a wall, Ike, here are some things you could do. But it was more like, oh, Emem, you know, asking for a safe word from Ike. It's like, no, he should know better tools to communicate when he feels pressured, communicate when he feels like he's being peppered with questions, not how she's going to twist herself in a pretzel so he doesn't overreact. Yeah, I didn't like any of it.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Sean. Therapists, because I've been therapy. Normally, what therapists they don't tell you what to do, but they do give you the tools to make your decision, or at the very least, they give you a difference of perspective. They may open your mind, your eyes to different perspectives that you may not have taken into consideration, so that way you have to be the one to use your deductive reasoning to work out what you need to do moving forward. But for her, to me, that the whole conversation was just so surface level and a waste of time. Like, you are clearly, from Ikechi's body language, he's not comfortable, considering the fact it just seems as if Emem is in a place where she has to conquer Ikechi as this final go-to. You know, if I'm able to make this relationship work, then I've got it. Even though there's clear signs that Ikechi's just giving breadcrumbs, if there's any breadcrumbs in the relationship anyway, of love. And to me, I think they do have to take accountability, because there are clear signs that one person doesn't like the other person. It's clear. And already there's this power dynamic that is unhealthy. And the moment you have a sense of leverage where I'm trying to get a one-up, I'm trying to stay in it, it becomes toxic. So the fact that they couldn't call things out for what they were, or at the very least speak more to the mindset that either Emem or Ikechi are having, they couldn't speak to that, but they just said, hey, you guys just gotta go back. It was a waste of time, and it's, if anything, they've indirectly become contributing factors to an already toxic relationship. So yeah, that's what I think. So I think they have to take accountability for choosing to still get them back into the relationship. So that's what I'll say.
I would say, again, I don't put a lion's share of the responsibility on the experts, because again, we're all grown, but most importantly, these are people who have signed up for the show, who have seen the show, especially in Ike's position. He's watched the show and he's applied for it multiple times, but this isn't like The Ultimatum or another show where they're in their early 20s or mid 20s. These are people who are a little bit more seasoned. And so you have to make sure that you are, one, doing your best attempt or coming as your own and authentic self in the show first and foremost. And then most importantly, you have to protect yourself. So what I feel like Emem was never really being protective of herself, whereas Ikechi, I mean, good, bad, or indifferent, I felt like he was protecting himself, maybe for sure wrongly, but I think Emem didn't do her due diligence in terms of protecting herself, because this man has already shown you that he is willing to damage your reputation, damage your confidence and self-esteem, and you're willing to continue to put yourself out there, regardless of how we might feel about the spicy comments or stuff like that. I put maybe like 10% on the experts. Like at some point, you just got to be like, hey, I'm done. And honestly, unless there's some like clause or anything like that, which I think that there is in terms of like trying to get them or convince them to come back together, I really just still don't put too much onus on the experts. It just seems to me like is really, really passionate about making this thing work. She's on a show. She's going to give it her all, even to her own detriment. And Ikechi is like, this ain't it. And I'll just do it because of whatever reasons. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe in some of these other conversations, like some of the exit interviews, we'll see if they like force them to come or force them to continue, which may be the case. The same with like AD and Clay and some of the other contestants in other shows like this, but we'll see.
I hear that, but my question then in that situation is this. Let's say that you are going to therapy with your significant other, your partner, right? And you guys are having problems. Do you expect your therapist to tell you what to do in that situation? Or do you expect your therapist to just give you an idea or maybe some thought process that you haven't considered? Because if a therapist tells you this is what you're supposed to do, they who do not know the nuances in the relationship, because you know the ins and outs, why are they now being the ones to tell you what you're supposed to do when it's meant to be you figuring out for yourself? Why are they now inserting their 2 cents and telling you, oh, usually I should just go back together again? I'm like, why would the therapist who is not trained in that regard, because they're in essence co-signing this relationship by telling you to do something that you should decide for yourself?
I hear that and know that those are some good valid points. I just think we use the term therapists and experts extremely loosely, especially when it comes to this show. We have somebody who is a pastor. We have somebody who might be who is clinically trained. And also they put their pride and joy on matching these people together. They don't say, hey, we are amazing at keeping these people together or making sure that they see themselves through to the finish line. I think that it's like being sick and having you can do preventative, or you can do like a prescription that kind of that alleviates some of the symptoms that you're facing currently, but you can also do some prescriptive like preemptive work beforehand. And so with this case and with the experts, I don't think that they're really equipped to give you real time in the trenches like actionable items, where I do think their strong point is like saying like, hey, this is what somebody wants, this is what somebody wants, let's match them together and then see if we can kind of bridge them over to getting married. And then because I don't see them, it's not like they go to them for therapy after they get married, or like as they are planning to have kids, they just go there just for the show, and then that's it. I just don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think they're well versed or equipped for the marriage portion. I think they're really good at bringing the people together, and that's the extent of their expertise. But not to shoot them down, like, hey, if Dr. Pia, not to like talk bad about their credentials. I'm just saying I really think that they're really great at the beginning portion. It's not the middle or latter part.
All right, so let's talk about Ike, obviously, on this situation, because there was a lot that I feel was potentially missed here as an opportunity to correct course with him. I think some of the behaviors that he exhibited with Emem should have been brought up and should have been addressed appropriately. For instance, calling your wife an arsehole, right? I felt like, they were a bit more serious with Chris and Paige, and when Chris was moving mad, than this situation here. You know what I mean? They got onto Chris heavy. You know what I'm saying to you? But this one here, I felt like they kind of let him scoot off lightly. I didn't feel like they actually really addressed some of the key wounds and issues that are happening here. In that space, especially when they brought them back together again. It felt like they were willing to ignore all the red flags just to allow them to get back into the process. It felt like they were just more concerned about keeping people in than actually really addressing Ike and his particular behavior as well. So what's your thoughts on Ike and the lack of addressal? Do you agree? Do you think there was enough addressal from your perspective in terms of his behavior, or do you believe that there was not enough dressing down? And if there wasn't enough dressing down, or there was enough dressing down, why do you feel that particular way? Let me know your thoughts on that as well. Who's willing to go and take this one on board? Should I just choose? Okay, I'll just choose, because the boys are being very soft today. Yes. Jeff, what are you telling me? Go for it.
Really? Nah, honestly, I think it's just beating a dead horse. I think the therapists, like the past and a lot, they could have done a bit more, but it would have been beating a dead horse with a guy like Ikechi, who's very headstrong in himself. He's hard of hearing. He's in a place where anytime he is trying to be held accountable for the things that he does, he always deflects, always stays in that victim mentality that I'm the person who is being done dirty. Because when the pastor was asking him questions as to why he doesn't get on with Emem, he will be speaking in generalities rather than giving the specifics as to what Emem is doing. And he would be focusing more, I don't like her attitude, or she doesn't know how to talk to me, but doesn't give specifics as to when stuff like that has actually gone down. He still stays on the character, but then now when his character or his behavior is brought up, he has to find a way of shifting the blame or shifting the goalpost to try and justify his behavior. So in that situation, it's very difficult to hold someone who is trying to do accountability dodgeball, basically trying to dodge accountability whenever he gets the chance to. And then in that situation, when he's now being brought forth next to Emem, where we can clearly see from his body language, he does not at all. He just doesn't. He doesn't strike me the type to even get to a place where he wants to listen to reason. It's like no matter what anyone could say, because even I always go back also to when he and Emem was sitting down with his friends, and they were like, last time, I think when the other contestants, the other candidates even tried to have a conversation with him, he was defensive then. So he's created a shield. No one can tell him anything. You already could see from his body, from his tone, from his body posture that he's in a place of, you know what, I'm not comfortable. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear that. So whether someone would really dig deep into him or not, it wouldn't have made a difference. A man who's hard-headed like that. So that's what I think. It wouldn't have made a difference.
You saying, Easton? Go for it.
I think that they're aware, whether it be from production, the circumstances that Ike is a incredibly, like, again, wounded individual. I think that they've seen it, they've heard about it, and they also can just feel his energy while at having the discussion that Ike is extremely closed off and is probably one step away from really calling it complete quits. I think that they are trying to encourage him, but he is taken a victim mindset so much that he thinks everybody is attacking him, even the experts, even with how he responds to the experts. Like, I think that I really want to know, like, how are his friends still his friends? Like, how are you able to hold him accountable? How are you able to talk to him, especially if his male friends? Because I think that, as the Mandem must know, like, some of the conversations you can have with the Mandem a little bit more assertive in some of the tonality and some of the words that you choose if they are screwing up or in that such. And so I wonder how his friends are even able to hold him accountable, and maybe they're not. And so this is why you get an Ikechi who's doing this at the early years of 40. And so in my mindset, I just think that Ikechi, he goes into every room, and sometimes he's right. He's like the type of person who has the intuition to know when people have been talking about him. So he knows when they were when he came into the dinner late and the energy around him is not all there. And it probably made him feel even worse when David got applause and everybody was happy to see David. But I think that, those type of people who are like, everybody's out to get me, people have been talking about me, tend to be right sometimes and more than not wrong most of the time. So they think that everybody's out to get them, and it makes the conversations unpleasant, unproductive. And I think that the experts know that, and so they're trying to maybe coddle him in a way to be somewhat productive, because you might be able to maneuver this or massage this conversation in a way that is somewhat helpful. But with Ikechi, he's so closed off that anything you say to him that comes across as holding accountability, he comes across as a victim. And Emem did this to me, so this is why I did this to her. And no productive conversation comes from that.
Yeah, I'm right in line. And I think ultimately, for whatever reason, they are trying to hang on to him because they know when applied pressure, he runs. So I think they've made a very specific choice to hold on to him. And again, I just want to be clear, like, I don't expect the experts to tell her to leave. However, we have seen examples of the experts holding people accountable. I've seen Dr. Pia herself call out Brennan in the previous season when he was being rude and disrespectful. And I've seen them in other instances give people advice, give people tools and tactics, encourage people to apologize for things that they've done that are wrong. And I feel like they didn't, I mean, Pastor Cal pulled it out of him when he tried to lie and say that he had never disrespected her. And then he still kind of doubled down on it, saying that she was acting like one, so that's why he called her one. I just wish we would have seen more of them helping him to understand that that's not the right way to communicate. Two, ensure that he knows that on going forward, that's not that we have an expectation that you're not talking like that you're not resolving problems like that. Not to just encourage them, use your voice to encourage them to get back in the house and live together. And again, if it was left on the editing room floor, then I think that's irresponsible because they told the story. So if they weren't going to address the a-hole comment and deal with it effectively, then they should have cut that out too. Because don't put it out there for us and then not leave us in a place where we see some resolve or addressing of it. So that's my thoughts on the experts. I think Kojo stepped away. So the next question we have is, what accountability does Ike need to take? So whoever wants to jump in on that.
First off, I was just gonna say, ladies, moving forward, this is why you should be careful when you're dating Nigerians. I'm joking, but it's obviously the accountability is that he needs to learn to be humble. But I think for so long, you guys have been around other people. Probably you've had friends or people in your group where they think that they are all that. They have this. They believe in their own hype, where you have other people surrounding them that kind of overinflate their own ego and really think that they're the bee's knees, to the point where they now come across someone and be like, oh snap, maybe I'm not all that it's cracked up to be. The reason why I say that is if there's this idea that Emem is very accomplished and she's done a lot for herself, and if Ikechi is in a situation where he feels that I don't match up to the standard of what Emem wants me to be, and I don't like her as well, there's also going to be a situation where now the image of who he wants to be and where he is at right now, the insecurities that he's dealing with, he's going to be in a place of attack. So you know what? I have to basically tear her down in order to get her to size. So that's the issue. I do not think for 1 second that they're going to last. I don't want to sound like a fatalist, but if there was someone that could be in his life to actually hold him accountable, I would say I'd have to ask, what type of person do you want to be? How do you see yourself? Like, this is how you normally communicate to people that you say that you love or say that you like? Like, seriously, what is up with you that you feel need to be disrespectful? Where's this coming from? I have to ask questions regarding why he moves how he moves. If we're going to do a deep dive into his childhood, do a deep dive into how his perspective on life, like, is he a man of faith? You have to dig deep into Ikechi, the person, to really figure out where all of this is coming from if you're going to hold him accountable. But if he has yes men, which I suspect that he does, because you don't get to this situation in life now thinking you're the bee's knees and you get to talk in the way that you talk and no one checks you. You don't get to that point. That comes from probably family members, friends even, overhyping you. And yet when someone now challenges your thought process or challenges your ethos, now you get on the defense. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
I would say somebody probably needs to, or I won't say somebody needs to, but he definitely has to be reaffirmed in his masculinity. I think that he is incredibly fractured. And so you'll notice that, like, I'll say, like, somebody whose masculinity is fragile, they typically kind of try to bring their significant other down, whether they're over here like negging them or giving them mean or snarky remarks, trying to bring them down in order to pump themselves up. And so I think that he needs to be reaffirmed in his masculinity, that he doesn't need to do that. And it's tough because whatever he's been doing, according to his friends, has been working for him in some form or fashion. Also, he needs to realize what does he want, because he said he's chased this show for 2 seasons, or he's watched the show, but he's chased this show, be on the show for multiple seasons. And so do you know that what marriage really encompasses? Like, are you prepared? And so for him to be, I think for him to see some noticeable change, for him to be held accountable, he needs to know the role that he's in, as far as him being a single man, to ultimately wanting to be a husband. I just think that he has to shift that mind frame in order to be more well-rounded, more equipped to handling people, because just because he's handling a mem like this doesn't mean he handles other people nicer. I mean, he could show the same level of vitriol and reluctancy of treating people not with just basic human care that he does to normal people. So I think that there's got to be those we have to have those conversations with his normal day-to-day life. And I have a hard time believing that Ikechi, the same way he shows up for Emem isn't how he shows up in his day-to-day life, and whether he has his nose up in the air, or where he thinks he's too good for people, or he's very short and snarky, or if you don't make him feel comfortable immediately, he isn't willing to snap back at you. I just think that he has to basically do an overhaul from all that stuff and not have this image of Ikechi, which might be what his image of masculinity is, as his North Star, and maybe rebuild that through good examples, or even just like knowing what you're doing now is wrong and incorrect.
Yeah, I think he needs to be held accountable to the process first. Reminded that he did sign up to be married at first sight. So he definitely needs to be reminded and accountable that if he wants to continue in the process, then he needs to understand what's required. He needs to also be held accountable for clear communication, right? And open, and back to the process. And clear communication is, if your spouse is asking you questions to get to know you, you should be in a position to be open to answer those questions. If there's something that is bothering you or something that you don't like, then you should clearly state what that issue is. Yeah, I think he needs that. And then lastly, respect. He needs to be accountable for respect in how he talks and how he conducts himself. And then lastly, I would say some transparency, because Ike's not very transparent. He'll drop a little bit of something and then expect you to understand what he means. When she was asking him about the vows, he says, I meant them when I said it. And then when she said, well, what does that mean? Like, what are you saying? Like, what does that mean now? Then he, pretends to be badgered and doesn't want to follow up. That's not fair. Because when you send somebody on a wild goose chase like that, you're being deceptive, you're being evasive, and you're really not taking the process seriously. And I think he needs to be reminded that, hey, you signed up for this, not once, not twice, I don't know how many times, but you signed up for this process. So that means that there's going to be some things that you're going to have to do that are uncomfortable, right? Some of your boundaries may be pushed, obviously not to the point of disrespect, but just some things that are uncomfortable. You might be asked a question that is a little bit outside of your comfort zone, or something that you wouldn't normally do when you just met somebody, but you're married now, because he keeps saying she's a stranger, I don't know her. Well, you have to get to know her. And that's part of the process, is getting to know her. So don't just throw up these walls. We talk a lot about women and walls. He just throws up a lot of walls, like he's just dating somebody, like you're just meeting them. No, you're married at first sight. You agreed to marry a stranger. So that means you have to dive in emotionally. You have to be vulnerable. And I think he needs to be reminded of those, and to really put his foot to the fire of, hey, if you want to be here, this is what we expect of you. If you can't do it, and this is probably not a front-facing camera conversation, but behind the scenes, after seeing how many times he's done certain things, they need to pull him to the side and say, hey, listen, if you want to be here, this is what we expect. This is what we need you to be able to do. And if you can't comfortably do it, because you're impacting other people. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Also, to add on, I think to your point, Sean, I think for Ike, if he really is serious about wanting to be in a relationship with Emem, first and foremost, his intentions. I mean, you're choosing to come onto Married at First Sight, so your intentions already are not pure. If you're just seeking to get onto this platform for the sake of image, because that's what it looks as if he's doing, for the sake of image, you want to up yourself, but you also have to understand that being in a relationship, a committed relationship, if Emem is to be that one, she's going to be a representation of you. So whatever you do is also going to have a negative effect or impact on her. Right now, he probably is experiencing some form of bias, remorse. Why? Remorseful being in a relationship with someone that he doesn't like. But if he's choosing to still be with her, there needs to be a better understanding of communication. He needs to find that common ground and has to want to have that common ground to reach a path of compromise and not just think, I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want. And she has to, you know, abide by how things I want to do it. And I think I always go back to his profession of being an artist. It's funny how his profession is taking a life of his own because he has such abstract thinking that it also shows up in the way that he communicates. He just leaves things into the air, doesn't give specifics, doesn't actually go into deep. So it's funny how artistry is about sensitivity, but he can't even be sensitive towards someone that he's meant to be with. So he needs to be more structured, more intentional, more direct in his communication, and be mindful of the fact that, yo, if I say that I want to be with you, if he does feel that way, then he has to be, he has to get it together. But if not, just leave her alone. Stay single and find someone else. Stop wasting people's time using someone else as a come up for your image because you want to go onto a show like Married at First Sight. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think the next question is, what change does he need to make to his behavior?
What change? So many things. I don't know what levels of therapy or even internal dialogue he's had, but he's gonna have to go deep into his bag on that, because whatever it is, and I saw somebody in the chat talk about it, how he told his mom to get rid of all the pictures. Like, he might be portraying or trying, or he's built himself up in a completely different image, and that might be void of a lot of empathy, a lot of like just normal social like cues on how to treat people, especially your significant other. I don't. It's tough to critique somebody because, again, we can only go off of what we see. So I don't want to over here psychoanalyze them too much and say like, oh, you're a narcissist or this, that, and the third. But I definitely want to harp on the idea that he's been, again, according to his friends, he has never had an issue getting women. So his false image of himself has basically, has some benefits to him in the short term, in the temporary. And so he's going to have to unlearn all those things because it might not have been in his best interest from a development from a global perspective as a man. And so with Ike, I think there's going to have to be a heavy level of internal thoughts and dialogues, working with somebody, having some honest conversations with those people that you hold near and dear. And even, hashing things out with your family members. I think as somebody who's had to do that as of late, you find a level of solace in knowing that you can appreciate or even empathize with people in your past that may have wronged you or may have caused your life or to be in a certain trajectory, or maybe you perceive that what they did to put you in a certain trajectory. You understand that everybody is human. So I think there has to be a heavy level of responsibility on seeking improvements in his own life, unlearning what he has learned, because whatever he did in the past gave him a lot of, it built on to this like person that we see today. I don't think that this was the original Ike. I don't think that if this was his mother raising him or his father or anything like that, I think this is kind of something that kind of was birthed out of a lack, whether it be a lack of solid foundation or anything like that. But I think that he has to break that in order to build himself back up. That's my 2 cents.
Where to start regarding Ike's behavior? I think his false image is going to be the one thing he has to get rid of, and it's going to be the most toughest thing to deal with. Like you said, I'm not going to diagnose him as someone with narcissistic personality disorder because we don't know, but there are traits. I will say that there are some signs, but I think Ike is going to have to die to himself, die to the image that he has personified. That you said that he has no trouble getting women, no trouble getting the women that he wants, for one, meaning that no trouble getting with the women that he's generally attracted to or feels that he can at least conquer, say all the right things. He has no issue with that. So when things are going his way, I think that's the thing, his way, he also has to die to his selfishness. Funny how, the pastors, it's disrespectful, but here's the thing. All these behavioral modifications are not going to do much if he's not willing to transform from his current presentation, because that's how his value is tied to his ability to move things in his corner. That's the issue of it. When things are not going his way, he gets on the defense. And because things are not going his way, the way he wants to live his life, the issue now lies in is that it's now having an impact as to how he relates to Emem. Because now when everyone is now trying to tell him, no, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, he gets on the defense and he creates a shield around himself to protect that false image. So I think, I don't wish ill of Ike, but unless he makes the conscious choice to maybe do some self-reflection, to die to that part of himself, it's not going to change. So yes, I think he needs to be accountable in terms of his behavior, his tonality, but I think at the root of it, it's just really a heart issue that no amount of behavioral modification is going to change, especially if he's with someone he's not attracted to. So that's why I think.
Yeah, I think with Ike, what he needs to do is I think he needs to do some real deep introspective work. I think he needs to go back to the drawing board. I think he needs to understand what makes him feel emotionally safe. And I think he needs to be able to start working on his communicational skills, right? Because when they ask him questions, he starts to feel like he's been attacked. He feels like people are being aggressive, people are coming after him. He fails to give oftentimes direct answers, has been shown to label very quickly too. So for me personally, it's about going back to the drawing board. First and foremost, let's start working on what is it that makes you feel emotionally safe and what makes you feel emotionally unsafe. Because without understanding that, you're going to ruin a lot of relationships, and we've seen that with Ikechi as well, and I think that when you look at Ikechi's behavior with even the experts, I know he's spoken about obviously her kind of pursuing him, and of course he doesn't really like her. I'm guessing he doesn't find her attractive, and that's a major thing, and that's why he hasn't said it. But the behavior that he's issuing is very different from MADDISON. Right? For instance, we know that MADDISON doesn't fancy Alan. Let's just be honest. It ain't happening. Okay? All right? But you don't have to see her labeling him and call him out. Now, is she stalling? Is she delaying? Is she creating distance? Absolutely. Right? She's chosen a more passive way of actually denying him his requests or denying a relationship. But the rudeness and the disrespect is a deeper rooted issue that he needs to work on, which is coming from a place of fear. It's you fear something that makes you react in the way that you do. And I think that, for me personally, shows me a lack of respect for other people. He talks about having respect for people that are of a particular value, that he felt like she wasn't being respectful. I feel like he's not respectful. That's why he makes those passive-aggressive comments to Dr. Pia and to Pastor Cal, right? So he's not respectful himself. So for me, the major thing for him is start working on self-awareness. If you're saying something about someone else's behavior, ask the question, what am I giving or what am I producing that could potentially be affecting the relationship between myself and the other person, right? What am I contributing towards the scenario? My thing is self-awareness for Ikechi. I think he needs more of it. I think he needs to sit down, slow it down, and really start analyzing. If he's going to watch his show back, I would watch it back and look at my behavior and how I showed up and what I could do better. And that's where I think he should start from. So I think in terms of him and M, I think he needs to start being honest first and foremost. They could have had a pact behind the show for all we knew. right? He could have done that. We've seen it on previous seasons and told her, listen, baby, listen, I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't fancy you. I don't find you attractive. I'm gonna be honest with you. It ain't gonna work. But let's just keep a good profile. We'll play our cards right. We'll keep it beautiful and move on. He could have done that, right? If he really was caring about her image and his image and creating an image that it shows that, you know, he's that they both could work with, right? That would benefit both of them. That would be something somebody wise who has wisdom, who is caring about the other party's image and their heart would do. But no, he hasn't done that. And so he's shown himself to be a brood and a viper a little bit. So he's going to have to work on that, you know? Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I think, Kojo, you kind of said something that I was also going to touch on. When you mentioned how Emem was the one that pursued him, it's also parallel to, you know, Simone Biles pursuing Jonathan Owen. It's like Emem was in her masculine energy and Ikechi right now is in his feminine energy. He took a passive approach towards Emem. And I think also adding on to the fact that because the guy, he has no trouble getting girls. So it sounds like to me, if that's what his friends are saying, if he has no trouble getting girls, he's in a position of receiving. And when you are in that position of receiving for so long, it's comfortable for you that you don't feel the need to now take the initiative to show love, because feminine energy also requires connecting energy, and he is not willing to connect with Emem in the way that she needs in order to feel a sense of love. So I think because he stayed in that position for so long, it's very difficult for him to get out of that place. So I think there needs to be a realignment of energies where if he's seeking to change, if that is true, which I don't think it is, I think he definitely needs to, first of all, understand the importance of what it means to be in a relationship. It's not just about taking. You have to give something. And that means giving something of yourself. And if he's not willing to do that, then he needs to stop leading Emem into thinking that something's going to be what it is and just simply, look, I don't like you like that. Let's just keep it pushing. But that's what I think.
Everybody said their piece? Yes, sure. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit in my earlier part when I talked about the behavior change that's needed. I just think he needs to learn how to be self-reflective and honest about his feelings, and not make his feelings about the other person. You know, I think he really has, he does a lot of projecting. And then when you follow up, he takes you on twists and turns that take you away from him being vulnerable. And I think he has a fear of being vulnerable for whatever reason that's happened to him. So he needs to really self-reflect and dig deep into what are some things that he's learned, what are some things that he's seen in his past and you know, past relationships that have been issues, because he is very clear on the things that Emem does. I just want him to be able to clearly articulate a few things that he is doing and what are some things he's working on. Because every time we even get into talking about something he does, he always says it's in response to, you know, I did it in response to her. I called her that because that's how she was acting. You know, I've done some wrong things, but it's only because the way I'm being treated. So I want him to look in the mirror and then be able to say, hey, what are some things I need to work on? What have I consistently heard from several people that have been in relationships with me that are things that I could work on to change? So some self-evaluation for sure. Is he going to do it? I'm not hopeful.
All right, before we go, quick one. I wanted to throw this one at you. Aside, obviously, Emem and Ikechi, I thought another couple that was really, really interesting on this episode actually was MADDISON and Alan, because he done said that this girl don't fancy him, and I want to say that she gaslit him. Okay, all right? I want to say she gaslit him. Okay, I want to call it what it is. Okay, it wasn't spicy, but definitely was gaslighting. I will say that for now. When he done told her and said, listen, I don't really feel like she really fancies me or finds me attractive, and you know, she doesn't really say those nice things about me, but you know, hugs David, you know, she was like, she was like, why would you ask me that? Why would I not ask you that? Well, I don't feel you like me like that. Wow, how would you ask me that question? And did not proceed to answer the question. I don't know if you noticed that. She actually never answered the question. So I want to get your thoughts really quick, because obviously the issue with the drink driving situation too, you know, I did understand where Madison was coming from slightly, but I felt like it. I mean, listen, first of all, don't drink and drive, guys. Don't do it. Don't do it. You shouldn't do it. Don't drink and drive. That's the first and foremost thing. But my thing was, how you gonna get heated when you said you've done the exact same thing and you had a couple drinks yourself? And I was like, sis, maybe you want to angle this a little bit differently. You know what I mean? It sounded like you're trying to tell him off. And I was like, you know what? If I'm Alan too, I'm probably going to tell you to bug off. I mean, I don't drink, so it is what it is. But I want to get you guys' thoughts as well, because I felt like, again, I felt like she gaslit him. You know what I'm saying? Too, like, at this point, Michelle's giving more play to David than Madison is. So what was you guys' thoughts before we go? What was your thoughts on Madison and Alan? Why are you shaking your head, Sean?
I think that was definitely an overreach. Michelle ain't giving David nothing but hell. Rightfully so, but she's, you know. Yeah, no, I definitely think Madison is playing a game of words with him. You know, she's just being a little bit nicer than Michelle is. But, you know, do we really want nice? Because then we still don't know where we stand. I think Alan is picking up on it. I wish that he would have not made that decision. I wish he would have just fell back and just realized the consequences, the potential consequences of driving, you know, impaired. You know, I really wish he wouldn't have done that. But Madison, 100%. She's playing word games with him. You know, he asked her at the anniversary dinner, and, you know, asked her, you know, how do you feel about me? How do you see about us? You know, she's like, I don't want to ruin it. You know, I don't want to ruin our time. You know, old boy said he can see a life with her. He can see forever with her and them building a life. She hit him with forever is a long time. So I think she's just trying to stay in this, but just keep him at arm's length while she does whatever she wants to do on the side. You know, I don't know why. You know, she's just not being completely honest with him and not saying, hey, listen, it's just not there for me. It's just not there. But trying to send him on some wild goose chase for answers that he's kind of picking up and feeling already. He said on the after party that at the end of the day, he's, you know, he goes to touch her and she kind of recoils. So come on. We know what it is. And Michelle just needs to be honest. Just like Ike needs to be honest with Emem, Michelle needs to be, Madison, excuse me, needs to be honest with Alan.
With Alan and Madison, it's a tale as old as time. Alan is the food guy, and Madison is the girl that has all the options, or I won't say all the options, but has multiple options. And the food guy is pretty low on the totem pole, but the food guy is always useful when you're hungry, and they're always willing to plan a date or do something like that. And Alan is starting to see the writing on the wall. And within that, I think that interaction with the drinking and driving situation was more of him being reactive to Madison rather than the actual drinking and driving. I think it was more of the fact that, like, he knows this person doesn't really care for him. And she's, you know, I guess because of her past with DUIs or drinking and driving, somebody in her family or something unfortunate happened within her immediate circle, which causes her to be a little bit more perceptive towards drinking and driving. But I think Alan is starting to kind of pick up on what's being put down. she is definitely gaslighting him, but I will continue to put accountability on Alan the same way I do with everybody. You are putting yourself in a relationship the same way with David. Anybody, I don't feel too much sympathy because Alan, one, you are a grown man. Two, and you just don't get no sympathy out here for what you're doing. Two, she hasn't shown you any type of love or any type of affection this entire time. And so why are you going above and beyond for somebody like that? Three, to me, it seems that he also is one of those late bloomers who doesn't understand, like, who hasn't had a lot of interactions. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misreading this, but hasn't had a lot of interactions with women earlier on. So my mom always tells me life comes at you when you're young or when you're old. And sometimes life comes at you when you're old or middle age. And life is coming at him when he's middle aged because he's dealing with somebody who, maybe if dealing with somebody like that, you kind of get, what you're dealing with. You're dealing with somebody who only likes you for what you can provide for them or the attention that you can give them. And so I don't have a lot of sympathy for Alan. I am going to ride for him at dawn when we have our super panel because I don't like Madison. I really don't like Michelle. I don't really like David, but David's doing cool, is trying to keep it cool. But yeah, Alan has to learn. It could be the same.
Definitely hear that, Jeff?
I think Sean and you said everything that needed to be said. I mean, not the food guy, but hey, what do you expect when you're in a relationship with someone who clearly doesn't love you the way you love her, or it just comes across as you being obsessed with someone, chasing after someone that don't like you? Just plain and simple. I mean, I saw them. I didn't want to pay too much attention on looks or attraction wise, but I'll just say this much: I could see the disparity. I'll say that much. It's giving, one person loves another person more, one person loves them less. So it's and now I think he's starting to see the light a little bit, because I think maybe the fact that it got to a point where if Madison is now making an issue about drinking, hypocrite. But now, yeah, it might have been due to traumatic issues, but I think it's just plain and simple. Just don't be with someone who doesn't want to be with you. Don't. And then stop trying to force someone to like you if they're clearly showing signs. And then if you keep on persisting, there's going to be resentment. That's all I've got to say towards that.
Love those thoughts. Thank you, boys. Yeah, man. Listen, we're gonna obviously put a cap in that because we're gonna be back a little bit later on to really discuss all the couples in the super panel, and I'm sure there'll be different points of view. But I cannot wait to chop it up because I'll tell you this now. I was sick of Juan by the end of that episode. I promise you I was sick of Juan. I was so sick of him. I know he was helping out with Scarlett with the business, but as that Negro, choose a time. Every conversation is a business conversation. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of you too. Okay? I'm going to get bored of you too. You know what I'm saying, Chew? He was definitely annoying me in this episode. So we'll definitely chop it up about them. Obviously, we got Michelle doing GTA, taking David into a shop, spicing him up, and talking about how things are going to potentially change if he looked good. She lying. And after those two, and then I think who else? Other person? Thomas and Camille as well. So I think obviously we didn't get anything crazy per se. We got more deep emotional stuff from them too, which was actually really good as well. So we got a better understanding of that. So someone said David ain't got no money though. Was that proven on this episode? Was that proven on this episode? It was proven that he had no money?
I think it shows that Michelle doesn't have as much money as we think, because she said, I hope that we can get a promotion to make as much as you. I was like, all you need is one promotion. You need one promotion just to get your money.
We should level.
Right. That's all I'm saying.
I said,
He got 2 jobs. Don't forget that. So he got to get a promotion with his and keep his second job to make as much money as her. And he living at home. And he said his savings ain't what it needs to be. So
that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, Sean.
Well, listen, I'm talking about the fact that everybody said, well, he's living at home, so he's probably got a bunch of savings. He's living at home. No, he's living at home, and he still doesn't have savings.
It's tough out here. You're right. You know what I mean? There's some degree. There's some truth there. Let me write the super chats. Nola Darling said, you can't deep dive childhood because he threw it away. He even told his mom to get rid of the pics. He's running away from who he is, which was talking about Ikechi earlier on when we had that conversation. And then Nola sent us another super chat, so shout out to her as well. She said, he just moved. Where is he going? He just moved. Where's he going when he leaves? Nobody knows where Ikechi goes when he leaves. And then Phil Good also dropped us a 2. He said the experts were whack as well. So shout out to Phil, because one thing you're going to do is let you know that something's whack. Listen, look, we're going to be back in a couple of hours. I think it'll be 8 p.m. for you guys EST. 8 p.m. EST will definitely be talking more about the different couples. So if you want to see a conversation about the rest of the couples, and obviously the women will be with us as well. I know he's probably wondering what's happening. You know, I thought we'd bring the men together. You know, I was meant to do it yesterday, but like I said, my stomach was doing a whole lot of butterflies. But we're going to bring the men on, you know, for like an hour or 2 each week when we do Married at First Sight, just to get their viewpoints, just to get you guys to also see that there's some men on this channel, and some strong men with, you know, gracious opinions, just to create a different vibe. I think there's a lot of information about men out there that I'm seeing that is not necessarily positive, but I want you to see that this is a very positive platform with positive men, and hopefully we have more men who get to come on these panels, be able to showcase more positive men in 2025 as well. All right, so we're going to see you, ladies and gentlemen, again a little bit later on at 8 p.m. EST, where we talk about the rest of the couples, and we'll have the ladies on as well. And I'm sure Seaway will have her way. El Cid will definitely want to have her opinion as well. And I think we might have Latoya as well a little bit later on as well. So look out for the rest of the crew. We're going to come on later on as well. I'll say sure she give us a quick benediction, a light one, because I know you're gonna have to do it again later on. So if you would like to do the honors, Sean.
Sure. What I'll say is, firstly, you know, be self-reflective. And this is primarily for Ike, you know, be able to look in your mirror and see the errors of your ways, you know, before you're able to point out those of the others, and be respectful in your communication. You know, if someone is doing something you don't like, there's nothing wrong with telling them, but be respectful. You know, that's it.
Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate that as well. God bless to our deacon on the panel here as well. Listen, you know, shout out to our deacon as well. He's making his way through this year, powering through. I know we was joking about talking about how we're losing certain benefits out here this year, so we're gonna claim some benefits next year, just this year coming up to Sean, exactly. So we're gonna be back in the business again. Shout out to you, Easton, as well, and Jeff as well. Thank you for joining us, and Phil. We'll be back next week for the Mandem as well. I think we will start branching it out, obviously, to different topics, but I wanted to stay consistent with the Married at First Sight first, and then we'll definitely chop up about dating in 2025. I know that's definitely gonna incite some warfare on this channel. I mean, last time we started that, yeah, it definitely had it definitely had the shooters ready. So we're going to bring that men's panel back again for you ladies and gents out there as well. All right, so we'll see you again at 8 p.m. EST, ladies and gentlemen. And Tara, don't do anything I wouldn't do. There's not much I wouldn't do. I'm telling a lie. I'm changed now. There's a lot I won't do anymore. So stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
You know what time it is. Time it is. Time it is. Time it is. Time it is.